Hello, and welcome to the Perry Connection. I'm your host, Jessie Barth, and in our studio is Janet Rossman.
Hello.
Janet, I'm so grateful that you're here, and thank you. 24 hours ago, you didn't know you were going to be on the show at this point, so thank you for just jumping in to substitute for Eric Kelly, who will be our guest next month.
Well, I like surprises.
Well, I like flexibility, and I really appreciate your being flexible.
Well, thank you.
So thanks for being on the show. Now, you, everyone knows you. You're sort of a local celebrity, especially to anyone who goes to the library or who is maybe under 9 years old.
That's right. I'm famous in Perry with the under 9 crowd.
The under 9 crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that?
Well, I am the children's librarian at Perry Public Library, and I have a unique position among other public librarians.
And what is that?
I have an outreach to the local community that includes the school, daycare centers, nursery schools, and the summer recreation program. So I don't know of any other librarian that has the gift that I have.
What a privilege.
To be able to communicate with so many people in Perry. Sometimes people forget about the library and forget that it's a resource for them.
Right.
But because I've been invited to the schools, to the daycare centers, to the park, I feel a great privilege to be able to share the library with them. And so I think that that's unique. I don't know of any other public librarian that has such a strong outreach program. Yeah.
Well, good for us in Perry.
Yes.
No wonder we love it here in Paradise.
Well, and I will tell you that before I came to the library, they had two people who worked at the library. Chris Nolan, who was the children's librarian, and Nancy Wilson, who invented these great outreach programs.
Oh, good.
So I didn't invent them, but I got to inherit them.
Yes.
And kind of put my own mark on them.
Yeah.
So it was a great gift to me that those two women decided to retire at the same time.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Oh, so
yes.
From the two, did they merge both positions to
yes.
yours? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, well, we can really thank Chris and Nancy.
Yes, I do when I see them.
Yeah, well, Chris has been on our show, and Nancy's a good friend, and so in fact, I should have Nancy on the show at some point.
You should, yes.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming, and thank you for what you're doing. And actually, I met you at Noah's Ark Preschool, which is housed at the Methodist Church, in 2009. And I was so captivated by your storytelling. So you not only share books and read stories, but you are also a storyteller.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And at the end of our show, you're going to tell us a story.
I do have a little story I'd like to tell.
Good. But before we do that, I'd like to really know about your past. Where did you come from, and how long have you been in Perry?
Well, I have not been in Perry very long. I have moved around a lot in my adult life, so I've been in a variety of places. But I started out near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And
Where?
Wilkinsburg.
Oh, Wilkinsburg, sure. I'm from Central Pennsylvania, from State College. So,
okay.
So we're Pennsylvania girls.
Yes, then you probably know I worked in Union County Library in Lewisburg. So very
really?
Close,
oh, okay.
Yes. So we lived
Bucknell.
in that area. Yes, we lived in that area for a while.
Okay, good. And were you always interested in books?
Well, of course. I had the kind of family that my mother read to me, and we read every night before we went to bed. And we had our bookcase with, our little golden books lined up. And when we got a little bit older, it was the Bobbsey twins.
Oh, I love the Bobbsey twins.
And I think they had little green covers, and the Happy Hollisters were red-covered books.
Oh, I don't know those.
Yeah, well, we had them all, and then we
What about
graduated
Nancy Drew?
to Nancy Drew.
Okay,
and,
Nancy Drew. That really dates us,
it
doesn't it?
And my bookcase full of color-coordinated series of books.
Well, it's so interesting that I had a similar situation. My mother would read to us a lot, and I loved the books, and I had all my babysitters pegged by their reading abilities. And I would not give a book that I loved, like the Bobbsey Twins or something like that, to a poor reader.
Good for you.
I was very, very conscious of that, and I bet you were too.
I really don't know, because I think really the only person that ever really read to me was my mother.
Okay.
As I was growing up. And my sister had an illness. She had rheumatic fever when she got a little bit older, and she was not allowed to read. So my mother continued to read to her past the age when kids normally get read to. And so we graduated into reading aloud those chapter books like Heidi and
Oh, yes. And Jane Eyre.
Yes.
Oh.
That was a great gift to
Oh,
us
yes.
that my mother continued to read, and I got to, listen in to that.
Oh.
And as I grew, I spent a lot of time in libraries as I grew up, and I do remember the Wilkinsburg Library.
Why
when I was
is
growing
that?
up. Well, they had a huge painting on the wall. The children's room was upstairs, and on the way up the steps there was a huge painting of Jesus before when he was 12 and went into the temple and was talking to the elder. So it was like a learning situation that they had in the public library, which you would never see that today. But I do remember the wide marble stairs and the big paintings, and going into libraries all of my life. Libraries have been a part of my life.
What a privilege. Yeah. So what were your interests in high school, and did you go to various high schools or travel around? You were in Wilkinsburg.
Well, by that we had moved again, and I went to high school in Irwin, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So this is sort of around the same area.
And then did you go to college and major in library science?
No, I did not.
Okay. What's your
I did not know
backstory?
what I was going to major in, and I started school in 1969. That's when I started college. And I don't know if you remember what was going on in the world in 1969 and 1970, but I got a little captured by the hippie movement.
Oh. And what does that mean?
That means I did not quite finish school at that time. And
did you go to San Francisco?
I did not. But I went to an anti-war demonstration.
Okay.
And my girlfriend and I were at this anti-war demonstration, and it was at Clarion College campus. And there were two guys laying on the sidewalk on either side of a coffin, representing those who had died in the war. Oh. And I was one of a group of people up on the hillside singing "Where Have All the Flowers Gone?" and those things. And my girlfriend pointed at one of the guys and said, "He's cute. Let's go down and meet those guys." And so we went down, and she met the cute guy, and I met Kevin Rossman.
And you trying to tell me he's not cute?
Well, he was cute to me.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, my girlfriend thought Steve was cute.
Yeah. What a fun story.
Yeah, that's how we met at an anti-war demonstration.
Well, that is quintessential, sort of baby boomer history.
Yeah.
I was a freshman in college at that time, and that was front and center, the war and what we were going to do about it. So.
Well,
yeah.
Fortunately, we met and married, and we married when he was on home leave because he was drafted.
He was, okay.
Yeah, so he was drafted, and he was one of those fellows that had a low number when they did the lottery, the birthday lottery. And so he was in the service. And
did he go to Vietnam?
No. Fortunately, he just got right in at the tail end.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And as he was in basic training is when Nixon announced that they were going to pull out.
Okay.
So fortunately, he did not have to go. But we married and he went to Germany, and I went with him and came home.
How wonderful.
Started having babies, and of course back then you got married and had kids. It didn't occur to me that I should also finish school. But because back then you were a housewife, or helping to put your husband through school. And so I did not actually finish my graduate or my undergraduate work until I had my 4 children were now grown.
Okay.
And
isn't it nice? There's no set way to do it.
my 4 children were grown, and I started and I finished my undergraduate degree.
And where did you do that?
I did it actually in 3 different places.
Okay.
I went to a community college, I went to Chatham College, and then I went to, we moved and I was away from the school, and I did it long distance. Back when long distance was kind of a brand new thing.
Right.
I finished my last 13 credits.
Good for you.
Long distance.
Good for you. Well, you have some beautiful pictures here of your family, so let's take this opportunity here to, can you tell us who these beautiful people are?
Well, that's Kevin and I, and next to us is our son Jeremy. And then kneeling below us is our son Will. And
This is Will. Oops.
no, Will is the other son.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to get my
that's
fingers right.
Will.
This is Will.
And his sister Lynn
Lynn.
and Nathan.
Nathan.
Yeah, and you can see that 2 of our children look a little bit different from us. And that's because when our children were like 5 and 6, we ran into we're the kind of people who do things when it shows up in your face. And
Sure.
so we ran into this family, and these children were living with their grandparents who were both dying.
Oh.
And we agreed to take them, and we adopted them
How wonderful.
when they were 5 and 6, and it was really cute because they were all the same age. And then when they got to be 16 and 17, it was really horrendous.
So you have 3 boys and a girl. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Good. And then you also have some beautiful
grandchildren.
grandchildren. These are
Yes.
your grandsons.
Yes, these are my son Nathan's children, Marcus and Evan, who has beautiful long red hair. And he started out growing his hair because he likes football, and a football player that he liked had long hair. But now it's gone past that stage, and he's aiming to grow enough to give away for Locks of Love.
Oh, really?
So,
wow. What beautiful people you all are. So giving, so community-centered.
And then Jeremy married a girl from Ireland, and they have 2 little girls, and that's when they were much smaller. But Anya and Ella.
All right, so
that's Anya.
Anya, okay, and then Ella.
And Ella.
And you said this was taken on a train when they were in Ireland.
Yes, because they live here in the United States now, but they travel back home to Ireland quite often.
Well, how lovely to have that international.
Yes, they're quite a nice family.
Yeah, international experience. Great. And where are they near you? Do you have any children near you?
No, 3 of my children live in Pennsylvania, and 1 lives way down in Florida.
Okay.
So we don't, and that's my daughter Lynn. We don't get to see her very often.
Okay.
But we're lucky that we have so many grandchildren close enough that we can visit them.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're all in Pennsylvania. Jeremy and his 2 girls are in Woolwich.
Oh,
which you
in
know,
Pennsylvania?
right?
Oh, yeah.
Right where that is.
That's back in my
Yeah.
territory.
And Nathan, with the 2 boys, lives in Philadelphia.
Oh, good. So now, when did you and Gavin come to Perry?
We came in 2008. I had my undergraduate degree, but when I moved to New York State, I found it very hard to find a library job. And I had worked in libraries in Pennsylvania and Louisiana and different places we had lived. But when I got here to New York, I wanted to work in libraries, but I had a very hard time finding a job.
Why do you think that was?
Well, I found out that many of the jobs that you could do in other states did not really require a master's degree.
Oh,
But
I see.
There are a lot of libraries in New York State, but most of them require a master's degree.
In library science or just?
In
Okay.
library science. So I was very close to Buffalo, and I thought, well, as long as I'm here not working, I might as well get my master's degree, which I did.
And we're
And
glad you did.
But the funny thing is that when I got my master's degree and I was looking for a job, I found this ad for this position in Perry. And it had all these things I really liked to do. And I was going through this. Oh, I did that in New Orleans. Oh, I did that in Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. A long list of things that they were requiring for this position, but they did not require a master's degree.
Oh, great.
So I ended up with my master's degree doing...
It was meant to be.
Yes. And it really was very perfect for me to be able to do that.
And then did you commute?
I did for a while because we lived in Bergen.
Okay.
And then after I had been here a year, my husband decided he'd like a career change. And he left his position, left his church, and started looking for something else. And I said, well, as long as you don't have a job yet, then we're going to move to Perry because
it's easier.
That's where I'm working, and you can find something after that. And he did, and he worked in Rochester and as a chaplain in an assisted living center. So he commuted for quite a few years, and then the church right across from the library opened up, and he said, you know, I really don't want to look for another church, but I'm going to do this. And if this one works out, then I'm going to say great. And it did. So all of our married life, I have followed him from job to job.
Oh, so it's meant to be.
Position. This time he followed me.
Good.
Which was very, very nice.
Well, we are the richer for it.
Yes. And because we're Presbyterians, my husband and I, and there is a belief in the Presbyterian system called the priesthood of all believers. And it is that you are called to whatever you do. Everyone is called. You don't have to be a minister. You don't have to be a missionary to do what God wants you to do. The priesthood of all believers is you do what God wants you to do wherever you are. And I look at my position as that. And my mission statement for Perry is that I want to connect with all of the children of Perry and encourage them. And it's not necessarily that I encourage them to read, although I do that.
Sure.
But the great thing about a library is if you like art, if you like science, if you want to be a comedian, you can get a book out on how to tell a joke.
Right.
And so whatever interest the child has, that's what I want to encourage them in.
That's beautiful.
And of course I want to encourage them to read also. But I want to just be an encouragement to them. And there are times when I have a difficult day.
You do?
Well, when a child picks their nose in front of me and I have to not laugh.
Wait. Okay. I know you have a book, so why don't you show me?
I was actually, when I go into the classes, what I do is I take a little rainbow bag of books to each classroom. And in one class, I was actually holding up that picture and telling them about
right here.
the boy who cried wolf and how that shepherd was very bored. And you can see he's picking his nose.
He's picking his nose.
Yes, and just as I held up that picture, there I looked down and the child in front of me was picking his nose.
So do you ever just stop and laugh, or are you too much of a pro?
I did not laugh. But I laughed quite a bit after that.
Yeah,
and,
isn't that funny? And this is called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Yeah, what beautiful illustrations. So
that's one of the things that when I go into classes, if there are younger children, preschool and younger, I do a traditional story time. For older children, up through 8th grade, I go into classes as old as 8th grade. I take a collection of 10 or 12 books and I will talk about each of the books. I'll do a book talk to try and encourage them to become interested in the book. And if they're younger children, like up to 2nd grade, I'll read a story at the end. Or if they're older children, I'll read a selection or a passage from a chapter book.
Let's look at some of these books that you have here and just some titles, say a grandparent or a parent is looking, or a child who might have a younger brother or sister. So let's go home, Little Bear. And who would be interested in this book?
That's a great preschool story, and it's very nice because it's got a calming parent who quiets his child's fears. And so Little Bear hears noises as they're walking through the wood, and the father just encourages him and explains what the noises are. It's a very nice, quiet little story.
As opposed to...
Yeah, Hecate Peg.
Hecate Peg.
Yeah.
Just what a title.
Yeah, it's got a witch in there.
A witch?
Yes.
A good witch, bad witch?
Bad witch.
Bad witch,
yeah.
Okay.
Just a refresher course. In stories, I often say that there's a wow factor. There's either a wicked old witch or a wise old woman.
O-W-O-W.
Yeah,
okay.
the wow factor. So when you're hearing stories, there's a wicked old witch or a wise old woman. And you'd be surprised how much time these women spend just standing around, because a man will be on a journey and he's going through the woods and he comes across a wicked old witch. Or he's going down the street, on a journey towards the kingdom, the king, and along the side of the road he meets a wise old woman.
Uh-huh.
So I figure I got another 3 years before I have to start standing on the corner.
Well, you have all
advice.
this wisdom from all these books. Now, do second graders like scary books?
Oh, yeah. That's I don't know why second graders happen to like that book, but they do. They'll listen very well to that one.
Now, what about this one?
Pete the Cat. I love my white shoes. And Pete the Cat is just a really cool cat. He's got a nice rhythm to him because I love my white shoes.
I love my white shoes.
Yeah. And he's the kind of cat that does not get disturbed when he steps in anything.
Oh, I have 2 cats. Maybe I'll have to check this one out.
Yeah, that's a cool book. Yeah.
Now, this is a different book. This is called Holes.
Yes, that's one that I really like to book talk to maybe 5th or 6th graders.
And we would call this a chapter book.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. And most of the children in Perry will tell you that I like books that are a little bit funny. And that one is a little bit funny.
It is. Okay.
And so when I do a book talk, I like to find a passage to read that is either a little bit scary or a little bit funny. And sometimes I try and find both.
Good. Mm-hmm. Now, if someone were to try to find you, are you at the library every day? What are your hours?
Am.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I am. I'm usually there till about 5 or 5:30 every day. So if the library is not open, is when I go do my outreach program.
Yeah.
So maybe.
And do you do that every week? What's the sort of percentage?
I am crazy out there.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
I do about 10 story times and about 15 book talks every month. So I cart about 250 books every month.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I hope you feel appreciated.
Some days I do.
Well,
and on
thank
days
you.
when I don't, when kids are, sometimes they're a little talkative when I'm doing my little book talks, or sometimes they're a little out of control, I like to do a Fred Rogers thing.
Oh.
And Fred Rogers said that he found the space between two people as holy. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of remember, they're really not trying to annoy me. Mm-hmm. And they're really not being bad. And I look at that and try to pull them in. I look at that connection and try to pull them in. So
good. And isn't Fred Rogers, isn't he just,
hasn't
he been a wonderful, wonderful mentor to so many people of all ages?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I like that idea of that holy space. And with that, why don't you tell a story to our audience? Would you do that?
I can do that.
All right. You can just look right into the camera so they
this
feel...
one right here?
Probably
this one. Okay, sorry. Mm-hmm. I know you told me that before.
Oh, that's all right. You're doing a beautiful job.
The story I'd like to tell is called The Tailor's Tale, and it's a Jewish folk tale. Once there was a clever tailor. He was very popular. Men and women would come into his shop, and the men would say, "Tailor, make me the fanciest fancery." And the women would say, "Tailor, make me the dressiest dress." And he made things for one and all. But he was a clever tailor, and he knew that times could change and that people would change. And so one day, the gentleman said, "Tailor, these just aren't fancy enough." And the women said, "Tailor, these dresses aren't dressy enough. We're going to the mall." And they left him one and all. Oh, he cried. He cried for about a day and a half. But because he was a clever tailor, he remembered that he had some material set aside for just a time as this. And so he went and he got that material and some scissors and thread, and he snipped and he sewed and he sewed and he sewed, and he sewed for himself a fancy coat. And he wore that coat and he wore that coat and he wore that coat until he wore that coat inside out. "Oh, I'll have to throw it away," he said. "Well, I think there's a little bit of material left here." And so he took that material and his scissors and needle and thread, and he snipped and he sewed and he sewed and he sewed, and he sewed for himself a venerable vest. And he wore that vest and he wore that vest and he wore that vest until he wore that vest inside out and said, "Now I'll really have to, wait a minute, I still see some material left here." Again out came his scissors and needle and thread, and he snipped and he sewed and he sewed and he sewed and he sewed, and so he made for himself a rather dashing hat. And he wore that hat and he wore that hat and he wore that hat until, yeah, you guessed it, he wore that hat inside out. And as he was throwing it away, he saw a very small bit of material. And he took that material and made for himself a beautiful button. And he wore that button 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 until it's not quite what you think. Ping! It popped from his shirt and disappeared. Well, you remember he was a clever tailor. And he reached out and he grabbed that material in his hand and he made it into one more everlasting thing. He made it into the story that I have just told you, The Tailor's Tale.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Beautiful. What an unusual ending.
Well, you know, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I tell stories and I give stories away to everyone. So,
What a gift.
well, thank you.
You are a gift, and you are the gift that keeps on giving. So we're so grateful that you and Gavin are in Perry.
Well, thank you. We're happy to be here. It's a
Good.
very nice community.
It is. It really is. And thank you for being on the show. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
Yeah, I can tell you did. You're natural. So thank you, Janet.
You're welcome.
Thank you for touching our lives and for valuing books and ideas and for being flexible and coming on one day's notice.
Well, I hope that everyone will come to use the library. It's
Yes.
a very wonderful
It's a
resource
beautiful
that we have
resource.
here. And I'm always happy to have new people come. And we are always trying new and different things, too.
Well, you know, it may be, we have to wrap up soon, but maybe we could have a show at the library sometime.
That would
Like
be
a
really
tour,
great.
you know, and actually have you capture you reading to your children.
Well, the new thing is STEM activities: science, technology, engineering, and math. Well, libraries make it STEAM because they add art.
Oh, good.
But we have a great Pioneer library system, and this week, as a matter of fact, we have some little robots that we're using at the library. So while spring break is on, I have activities every day, including
great.
these little Ozobots. They're called little robots, Legos and arts and crafts and puzzles, and something different every day this
Good.
week.
Well, there's always something going on there, so we'll see if we can maybe do an on-site interview.
That would be great.
So,
yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
We'll see you again. And thank you for joining us here at the Perry Connection. We'll see you again next month when Eric Kelly is on our show.